وسلم وبارك على نبينا وحبيبنا وإمامنا وقدوتنا محمد بن عبد الله وآله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Respected brothers and sisters, welcome to our weekly class on the explanation of the book of fasting from Bulugh al-Maram min Adillat al-Ahkam lil-Hafidh Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullahu ta'ala. So, now, the last thing we did was we were looking at two hadith. Now, we were looking at two hadith. The first hadith was an Ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول, on the authority of Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, he said, I heard the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam say, إذا رأيتموه فصوموا وإذا رأيتموه فأفطروا. When you see it, start fasting, and when you see it, stop fasting. فإن غم عليكم فاقدروا له. And if it is unclear for you, or it is cloudy for you, فاقدروا له. Then count it, or consider it. Or estimate it. Muttafaqun alayh, Bukhari and Muslim. And in another wording in Muslim, فَإِنْ أُغْمِيَ عَلَيْكُمْ فَقْدُرُوا لَهُ ثَلَاثِينَ. And if it is cloudy for you, then count it as 30. And another wording in Al-Bukhari, فَأَكْمِلُوا الْإِدَّةَ ثَلَاثِينَ. And if it is unclear for you, the skies are not clear, and you cannot see the hilal of Ramadan, فَأَكْمِلُوا الْإِدَّةَ ثَلَاثِينَ. And complete the number of days as 30. And also in Bukhari, in the second hadith, so this is the first hadith, which is the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar radiyallahu anhuma, reported by Bukhari and Muslim, with the slightly different wordings in different narrations. The second hadith was reported by al-Imam Bukhari, fi hadith Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, فَأَكْمِلُوا إِدَّ شَعْبَ ثَلَاثِينَ. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, فَإِنْ غُبِّيَ عَلَيْكُمْ فَأَكْمِلُوا إِدَّةَ شَعْبَانَ ثَلَاثِينَ. If it is unclear for you, so this is Sahih al-Bukhari, hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, that if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if it is unclear for you, the skies are unclear, فَأَكْمِلُوا إِدَّةَ شَعْبَانَ ثَلَاثِينَ. Then complete the number of days of Sha'ban as 30. And we took some fawaid, the benefits from this hadith, which we're not going to repeat today. You can refer to lesson 4, our last lesson that we did a couple of weeks ago, which is lesson 4, for a recap of those benefits. And I think the last thing we were speaking about was refutation on al-Hisab al-Falaki, relying upon astronomical calculations and astrology and the likes.
Akhi, we lost your audio. Akhi, we've lost your audio.
Any clearer?
It started now, yes. So you're just about to talk about astrology calculations.
Okay, Jazakallah khair. Yeah, so the last thing that we spoke about was explain this hadith was al-Hisab al-Falaki, using astronomical calculations to determine or mark the beginning of Ramadan, and we refuted that from a number of angles. طيب. So for the next few minutes, inshallah, we will try to complete the explanation of these two ahadith before we move on to the next one. So there are some other fawaid, very useful benefits which we can take from this hadith, which the ulama have mentioned. The first major one that we are going to talk about today is ittifaq wa ikhtilaful matali'. What does that mean? So matali'ul qamar, matali'ul qamar, the matali' of the qamar, of the moon. Now, what does that refer to? That refers to the moon's rising and setting points. Now, so depending on geographical location, depending on the region that you are in, and from place to place, from country to country, it is a fact, and there is no disagreement regarding this. It is a fact that moon's rising and setting points will vary, and that the appearance of the moon and the orientation of the moon cannot be same in all parts of the world at the same time. The appearance of the moon, the way it appears, it varies from place to place. Now, depending on what part of the world you live in. So this is something which is accepted by everyone, by all the scholars, because this is a fact. No one can deny it. But the question is, should these differences in the moon's rising and setting points, and these differences in the appearance of the moon and the orientation of the moon, should these differences be taken into consideration when defining or marking the beginning of Ramadan or not? This is where the ulama have differed. So there are two main schools of thought. The first school of thought is that of the majority of the fuqaha and the ulama. And the second is also an opinion of a lot of the scholars and the imams, and also Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullahu ta'ala. So the first opinion is the opinion of the Jumhur. Let's talk about that. The opinion of the majority. They say that these differences in moon, they call for global moon sighting, a unified moon sighting. What does that mean? That means that if the moon has been correctly sighted in a Muslim country anywhere in the world, then it becomes binding upon all the Muslims across the world to fast due to that sighting of the moon. Okay, and that's the opinion of the majority of the ulama and the fuqaha, and also from our contemporary scholars, Sheikh al-Albani and Sheikh Ibn Baz, rahmatullahi ta'ala alayhim. They are also of this opinion. What are their proofs? Firstly, their proof is these ahadith which are mentioned, which we have just mentioned. Now, the Prophet ﷺ said very clearly, إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهُ فَصُومُوا. When you see it, yani the hilal of Ramadan, then start fasting. So these scholars say that this is an address to the entire ummah. And also the Prophet said in another hadith, Sumu li ru'yatihi. Fast when you see it. Sumu. So this address is for plural. So the whole ummah, the whole nation is being addressed. Huh? So therefore they use this as a proof that it is obligatory if the moon is correctly sighted in a particular part of the world, then all the Muslims have to fast due to that sighting of the moon. Another evidence they use is the hadith of Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anh mentioned in At-Tirmidhi, which is authenticated by al-Albani rahimahullah, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, As-sawmu yawma tasumun wal fitru yawma tuftirun wal adha yawma tudahun. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the fast is the day the people fast. The breaking of the fast is the day the people break their fast. And the sacrifice, meaning the udhiyah on Eid al-Adha, is the day the people sacrifice. Meaning, you fast with the people. You fast as an ummah. You all fast together. Another point they mention to support their position is that they say that this will bring about unity amongst Muslims. And unity amongst Muslims is from the Maqasid Sharia, is from the objectives of the Sharia. So, we're not going to go into too much detail. That should be enough to give you a good picture of this opinion. Now, what's the second opinion then? What's the second opinion? Which is also an opinion of well-renowned scholars of the Salaf and those that came after them. And it is also the opinion of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. And it's also the opinion of our Shaykh Muhammad bin Salih al-Uthaymeen rahimahullah and other than him. So they say no. They say we have to give consideration to the differences in the rising and setting points of the moon. These have to be taken into consideration when marking the beginning and the end of Ramadan. Now, this has to be taken into consideration. So what they say is that each location, they call for not global but local moon sighting. Local moon sighting, meaning that every locality, every region, country, and so on and so forth have their own sighting, independent of anybody else. So what they say, like Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he said, so if it is sighted in a particular country or a region, and there are countries around it or regions around it that have the same matali al-qamar, they have the same rising and setting points of the moon and same appearances of the moon, and they share the same orientation of the moon. Naam. That these countries must fast together. These countries must fast together. Okay? And anybody that differs with them on the Matali al-Qamar, the rising and the setting of the moon, appearance of the moon, orientation of the moon, then he is not to fast. He is not obliged to fast with this sighting. So this sighting refers to people who have seen the moon haqiqatan or hukman. Haqiqatan, they see it in reality, or hukman, or who take the ruling of seeing it. How do they take the ruling of seeing it? They share the same matali'ul qamar. They share the same matali' al-qamar, rising, setting appearances of the moon. Then these regions and countries have to fast together. Now, it's obligatory. So I hope that is clear. No? And even I was searching online. So geographically speaking, on Earth, you have these imaginary lines, yes? So you have the equator, which runs from the east to the west, and you have the meridian, which goes from the north to the south, yeah? And to the right and the left of the meridian, we have the longitudinal lines. And as for the equator, to the north and the south of it, we have the latitudinal lines. Now, so what they said is, I'm just going to read it to you. Just like with the stars, the moon's appearance in our sky would vary slightly according to our latitude. Latitude are the lines that are going north and south. Latitude, the lines that go around the earth, yes, the east to the west. Yeah, so the moon's appearance in our sky would vary slightly according to our latitude. Two locations on the earth that share the same latitude would see the moon in the same phase and same orientation, but not at the same time. But not at the same time. No? So this supports what we are saying. Just 1 second, I'm trying to look for the statement of Sheikh Al-Uthaymeen. No. So look what Sheikh Uthaymeen Rahimahullah said also. He says, فَإِذَا رَآهُ أَهْلُ الْمَشْرِقِ. If the people in the east see it, meaning the Hilal Ramadan, وَجَبَ عَلَى أَهْلِ الْمَغْرِبِ. It becomes obligatory upon the people in the west. الْمُسَاوِينَ لَهُمْ فِي الْخَطِّ. That have the same khat, same line, yani the latitude, yes? أَنْ يَصُومُوا. It's obligatory upon them to fast. Why? He says, لِأَنَّ الْمَطَالِعَ مُتَّفِقَةً. Because the matali' of the qamar, in this case, the rising and setting points and appearance orientation of the moon, muttafiqah, are the same. So that's, hope the picture is clear now of the second opinion, yeah? As we said, there are two main schools of thought, this and this. Now they also have proofs. They also have their proofs. So let's quickly run through few of their proofs. Now, what is the correct opinion? What is stronger? This is something you can do your own research into. Now, I'm just here presenting to you the two arguments. Okay. So firstly, they say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, in ayat talking about fasting, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. Whosoever amongst you witnesses the moon, sees the crescent of Ramadan, then let him fast. This is mantuq. You know, there are evidences which are mantuq and mafhum. What does that mean? Mantuq, explicit. Mafhum, implicit. And what is implied and understood. So here Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says, if you see the moon, fast. The mafhum of this, the mafhumul mukhalafa, what is understood and implied and inferred by this is that if you don't see it, then don't fast. So if you don't see it, the crescent, nor are you in the hukam, the ruling of those who see it, by having the same matali al-qamar, then don't fast. Why? Because you haven't seen it. You haven't seen it haqiqatan, nor have you seen it hukman. The second is, they reverse the hadith which we are talking about now. They reverse it. So you know, the first group said that إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهُ فَصُومُوا, when you see it, فَصُومُوا, it's an address to the entire ummah. Yes, they say, they use this hadith in a different way. They say إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهُ فَصُومُوا, if you see it, then fast. They say, but you haven't seen it. How can you fast? The Prophet ﷺ said, if you see it, did you see it? No, you didn't see it. If you are going to take another country's word for it, or follow their moon sighting, you haven't seen it. And if you don't share their matali al-qamar, then neither have you seen it in reality, nor do you take the ruling of those who have seen it. And the Prophet ﷺ said, if you see it, then fast. But you haven't seen it. Now, also another one, this is quite a strong proof, is the hadith of Kurayb, rahimahullah. I think he was from the Tabi'een, yes. Mentioned by Imam Muslim in his Sahih and Tirmidhi and authenticated by Al-Albani, rahimahullah, that Kurayb, he said, now this was during the rulership of Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu, when Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu was the Khalifa. Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan radiyallahu anhuma, when he was the Khalifa and he was based in Sham at that time. Yes, Sham, the region Sham. So what happened was, al-Fadl bint al-Harith radiyallahu anha, al-Fadl, her name is Lubaba. She was the wife of Al-Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ. She was the mother of Abdullah ibn Abbas, and she was a sister of Maymuna radiyallahu anha, Mu'mineen Maymuna. She was a sister of hers, and also she was the khala, the maternal aunt of Khalid bin al-Walid radiyallahu anhum ajma'in. Anyway, she sent Kurayb to Muawiyah in Sham. She sent him for a particular task. So he said, when I arrived in Sham, I did what she asked me to do. While I was there, Ramadan started. Yes, while I was still in Sham, Ramadan started. So we saw the crescent, we saw the new moon on the night of Friday. Meaning, I think I've mentioned this before, in the Hijri calendar, the night precedes the day. So that would mean for us, it would be Thursday night. Yes, we would call it Thursday night. But Islamically, it's called Friday night. Yeah? So he said, we saw the moon on Laylatul Jumu'ah, on the night of Friday. He goes, then I came back to Medina at the end of Ramadan, and Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, he asked me, and one of the things that he asked me was the hilal, the crescent. He said, when did you see it? He said, I said, we saw it on Yawm al-Jumu'ah. We saw it on the night of Jumu'ah. He said, did you see it on the night of Jumu'ah? I said, yes, the people saw it. So we fasted, and so did Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu, he fasted. Then Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, he said, but we saw it on the night of Saturday. So we are going to continue fasting until we complete 30 days, or until we see the moon of Shawwal. فَقُلْتُ, then Qurayb said, I said to Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, أَلَا تَكْفِي بِرُؤْيَةِ مُعَاوِيَةَ وَصِيَامِهِ? Why don't you just suffice with the sighting and the fasting of Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu? He said, La, he said, no. هَكَذَا أَمَرَنَا رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. This is what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam commanded us. Now, this is what the Prophet ﷺ commanded us. So this is the understanding of Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma of the hadith when the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهُ فَصُومُوا. When you see it, start fasting. وَإِذَا رَأَيْتُمُوهُ فَأَفْطِرُوا. And when you see it, stop fasting. So Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma, he understood from this hadith what we have just mentioned, that for every country or for every region, they have their own ru'ya, own sighting, and we go by local moon sightings. And if you think about it, as Shaykh Sulaiman al-Rahili Hafidhullah mentioned while explaining this hadith, if you think about it, this is not just the fahm understanding of Abdullah ibn Abbas, but this is the understanding of the Sahaba in general. Because obviously at that time there were many Sahaba in Medina, and there is no report, authentic report showing that any of the Sahaba opposed what Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma said. In fact, we can say that this is also the understanding of Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu. Because Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu was the Khalifa at that time. And it is from the job of the Khalifa, one of his duties, that he sends people to different regions and different countries to inform them of the beginning of Ramadan. And that Ramadan started on Jumu'ah. And if any one of you missed it, then make sure you make up that day. And this is from the wajibat of the Imam. But the fact that he didn't do that, it shows that he also was of this opinion, that let every region have their own sighting. Let every region have their own sighting. Please excuse me for that. Firstly, it's not my mobile. And secondly, I cannot reach and not switch it off. Okay. Now, so hopefully that is clear, inshallah. Yeah, they proves. They also use qiyas analogy. They also use qiyas analogy. They do qiyas of the monthly fasting, they strike an analogy between the monthly fasting and the daily fasting. What do we mean by that? Basically, it's a well-known fact that there are different time zones across the world. So if it's Dhuhr here, it cannot be Dhuhr in America, for example. If it's Maghrib here, it cannot be Maghrib in the UK or any other country, yeah? Now, so because time differs, there are different time zones, then there is no doubt that the ru'ya, sighting of the moon, will differ. And the moon rising and setting points will differ. And the appearance and the orientation of the moon will differ due to these differences in time across different regions. Now, so look what the Prophet ﷺ said. The Prophet ﷺ in authentic hadith, he said, إِذَا أَقْبَلَ اللَّيْلُ مِنْهَا هُنَا. If the night approaches from here, meaning the east, وَأَدْبَرَ النَّهَارُ مِنْهَا هُنَا. And the day departs from here, meaning the west, وَغَرَبَتِ الشَّمْسِ. And the sun has set, فَقَدْ أَفْطَرَ الصَّائِمُ. Then the fasting person breaks his fast. This is daily fasting for iftar and imsak. Yeah, meaning, you start fasting at Fajr and you break your fast at Maghrib. These are daily timings. Now, these are the daily timings. Okay, are daily timings the same across the world? Of course not. Do we all keep the fast at the same time in the morning? Of course not. Do we break our fast at the same time in the evening? Of course not. And the Prophet ﷺ said about the monthly timing, إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُهُ فَصُومُوا وَإِذَا رَأَيْتُمُ وَأَفْطِرُوا. When you see it, start fasting. When you break it, stop fasting. Now, so these scholars, they say, just like the daily timings differ, so do the monthly timings. So they do this qiyas. So they do this qiyas, this analogy. Also, Sheikh Sulaiman Rahiri mentioned that if we go by global moon sighting and we say that everyone across the world, all the Muslims have to fast at the same time, he said, in this is mashakka azima upon the Muslimun. In this is great hardship upon the Muslims. Why? Because Islam is not restricted to a particular time and a place. Islam has come for the entire, for the human race and the jinn race, from the time of the Prophet ﷺ until Yawmul Qiyamah. So the fact is, the fact that nowadays it's easy for information to spread on social media, and you can inform the people that fasting has started, so start fasting. So everybody in the world, it's easy now. But was it easy in the past? For many centuries? No, it wasn't. It could take a very long time and days for this information to reach other Muslims. Now, so for example, here in Medina, we would always be in doubt. Has the moon been sighted in a different part of the world? Has it not been sighted? Yes? Now, so Islam doesn't approve of such difficulty. Now, okay, it might be easy now, but in the past it wasn't. And Islam is not only for now, it was for the past as well. Yes? So This is another proof Shaykh Sulaiman has mentioned to show that to tell all the Muslims across the world to start fasting at the same time, this is a difficulty. This entails difficulty, great difficulty upon the Muslims. Now, and also he replied by saying, as for the scholars who say that this will bring about unity amongst Muslims, he said, not really. This doesn't bring this, it doesn't do so. Why? Because he said Ramadan is restricted to a month. Once the month's over, then what happens to the Muslims? So in the long run, this doesn't really achieve much unity. And he said, just like the prayer times, do we tell all the people in the world to pray Dhuhr at the same time? Pray Maghrib at the same time, pray Fajr, so we can be united? Because of course we don't do that. So likewise, we don't do this. There's other things we can talk about, but I think that gives you the general idea of this. The two major opinions. However, one thing we have to take into consideration is if the ruler of a Muslim country now, you have to follow the opinion he follows. You have to follow the opinion that he follows. So if the ruler of a Muslim country, he says, I believe, I follow the opinion of global moon sighting, and all the Muslims fast together, and the moon has been sighted in such and such a country, you fast. I'm announcing the beginning of Ramadan. But let's say you are of the opinion, no, it should be local moon sighting. You are not allowed to differ with the Imam, because this differing will cause fitna. Yes, so if you are under the rulership of a particular ruler, you have to stay united. Whether you disagree with that opinion or you disagree, you have to follow the Imam, the ruler, and what the opinion that he has chosen. Why? Because in issues of ijtihad, in issues which there is flexibility of ijtihad and reasoning and looking at proofs and seeing which ones are raji, which ones are marjuh. Yes, in these opinions, if the ruler chooses one of the opinions, the hukm of the hakim yarfa'u al-khilaf. The hukm of the hakim, the ruling of the hakim, in this context, it removes the khilaf. There is no longer any khilaf in this issue. You go by what the Imam says, and also this is what must be done. And you don't disagree with your Imam. You fast with the Jama'ah of the Muslimun, and you don't cause fitna, and you don't differ with the people. It's going to cause splitting amongst the Muslims. And so just like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu an, as you know, in Mina, when you go for Hajj, whilst you are in Mina, you pray every prayer on time, but you shorten it. You shorten Dhuhr, Asr and Isha. And this is what was done by the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and Umar al-Khattab, and even Uthman radiyallahu an in his beginning of his Khilafah. But at the end of his Khilafah, he changed. He did ijtihad radiyallahu an, and he saw that we must complete the prayer. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud told him that this is not what I did. I prayed behind the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Bakr and Umar, and we prayed too. We shortened the prayers. Yes, but then when it came time, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, behind Uthman radiyallahu an, he completed the prayer. And when they went to him, they said, you, not criticized, but you kind of refuted the position of Uthman radiyallahu anhu, but now you're praying behind him. And he said, al-khilafu shar. Al-khilafu shar. Differing is evil. This is mentioned in Abu Dawood. Al-khilafu shar. Meaning that differing with your imam in issues of ijtihad, this is shar. This is evil and it will lead to evil. This is why, as the Shaykh Muhammad ibn Salih Uthaymeen rahimahullah, he said, and this is what is practiced really nowadays, that every country seems to have their own moon sighting because each country has its own ruler. So he said, for example, you see there are two countries, Muslim countries next to each other, and there's the border. On this side of the border, there's just a few kilometers difference. So these are in one country and then one country, but few kilometers. But you will see that perhaps the people in this country, on this side of the border, they will start their fasting and these won't. Perhaps they will stop fasting in Shawwal and these won't. Why? He said because that is what is now practiced, which is that every country is following his imam. And he said that this, Shaykh Uthaymeen said that theoretically speaking, the position of Ibn Taymiyyah is the correct position. There should be local moon sightings. But the practical implementation, he said, then what must be done is that you stick with your imam. Is that you stick with your imam, even if you differ with him, and you don't make apparent you're differing, and you leave the affair to the imam. No? Okay, that was that. Inshallah, that is clear. Okay. We have 3-4 more points which the scholars have mentioned concerning this hadith. So let's look at them quickly. Obviously, they are much shorter than this one. So I hope that is clear, inshallah. Naam, tayyib. So now, let's say there's a scenario. You start fasting in your country, and then during Ramadan, you travel to another country. That was Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu an, and that is mentioned in Sunan Abu Dawood, hadith number 1960. He said, al-khilafu shar. Al-khilafu shar. And as Sheikh Sulaiman Rahili explained it, he said, يعني الخلاف على الإمام في المسائل الاجتهادية شر كله. He said, khilaf, differing with the imam, the ruler, in issues of ijtihad, sharrun kulluhu, all of it is evil. So you have to understand that in the right context. Now, barakallahu feek. So now let's say you are in your country, you start fasting with your people, your country, then you travel to another country. What happens? The scholars have mentioned that you will take the hukam of the country that you have traveled to, that you have gone to. So for example, let's say you have finished in your country 30 days. This is the 30th day or 30th day of Ramadan. Last day of Ramadan, alhamdulillah, Allah gave us the tawfiq to complete Ramadan. We thank Allah. And you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to go and do Eid with my family in another country, for example. You get over there now, and they tell you, no, we still have 1 day left. We're fasting tomorrow. But you've already fasted 30 days. What do? The scholars have mentioned that you fast with them, even if it's 31 days. You must fast with them. And they say that this is the same, sometimes it happens, you start fasting, looking at the daily timings, you start fasting in your country or wherever, yes, and you might travel whilst you are fasting, and then what happens is your fasting is delayed because the country you have traveled to, their Maghrib is later, much later. So you just keep, so even though the people in your homeland or home country or home city have broken their fast, yes, like for example, if you go from, I'll give you an example of, I'll give you an example of Saudi Arabia. The people in Dammam and Khobar in the eastern province will break their fast maybe an hour before us. The people in Riyadh will break a fast about half an hour before us. And them in Medina. Same thing in England. The people of Birmingham, let's say you London, people of Birmingham will open their fast a bit later, 15-20 minutes. The people even further up north will maybe 30-35 minutes. The people in Scotland maybe even more, 40-45 minutes. Now, so if you now travel and Maghrib is getting later, what's happening? You're fasting more than the time you were supposed to fast, because in your homeland it's finished Maghrib. But you keep fasting with these people because for them Maghrib still hasn't come in. You cannot say my Maghrib is coming, I'm to break my fast. So in the same way, if you get to a country who haven't fasted the full Ramadan and you have fasted the full Ramadan, you have to fast the next day, even if that means fasting 31 days. Okay, let's say the opposite. Let's say the opposite. You fasted 28 days and you come to a country and they have seen the, and on the same day in the evening, they spot the moon for Shawwal. And they say, Khalas, we're doing Eid tomorrow. But you're going to say, I've only fasted 28 days. And Islamically, a month cannot be less than 29 days. So either going to be 29 or 30. So in this situation, what do? The scholars have mentioned, of course, it's Eid. You must do Eid with them. It is not permissible, obviously, to fast on Eid. But then after that, you have to make up a day. Because Ramadan cannot be less than 20. No month can be less than 29 days, yes? So because Ramadan cannot be less than 29 days, you have to make up one fast after Eid. Okay, let's say, give you another scenario. Let's say you fasted 30 days in your country and you've broken the fast and it's Eid. Everyone say, Taqabbal Allah minna minkum salih al-a'mal, it's Eid. Nah? So Eid for you has started. Nah? So you say, okay, I'm going to go somewhere else and do Eid, maybe with my cousins and my relatives, and you go there. And you see them fasting. You see them fasting. You've done your Eid. You've done your Eid. The next day you've prayed Eid prayer. Eid, everything is okay. Now you go to, I don't know, you say, I'll spend rest of the Eid somewhere else with my other relatives. You go there and you see them fasting. Now, in this situation, do you have to do imsak and qada? You have to now refrain from eating and drinking. And if you don't refrain from eating and drinking, do you have to make up that day? No, you don't. Why? Because when Shawwal entered, you were in your home country, and for you that was Eid. For you, Ramadan is finished now. For you, Ramadan is finished because you were still in your homeland, in your country, with your family when Eid started and Ramadan finished and Shawwal started for you. Okay. Another scenario, another point that some of the scholars have mentioned is that no consideration is to be given to the length of day or the length of night. Now, even if the day is 20 hours or the night is 20 hours, which is nice and easy, yes? As long as the day and the night together make 24 hours. If the night and the day together make 24 hours, no consideration is given to the length of the day or the length of the night when fasting. But sometimes there are certain parts of the world where there is no day or night for a few weeks, maybe a month or two. It can happen, yes? Maybe it's all night for a couple of months, maybe it's all day for a couple of months. What do you do in this case? In this case, you have to look at the closest country in which there is a day and a night within 24 hours. And you go by their timings for Ramadan and for the prayer times. So you look to the closest country to you, which has a day and night during 24 hours, and you use their timings for prayers and for fasting. Another point the scholars have mentioned, let's say you are traveling by plane. You are now on the plane. Yes, you are still in your home country. You're at the airport and you are on the plane. And the sun still hasn't set. Yeah. The sun still hasn't set. Then you travel. Yes. Then you travel. And you can see the sun. You can see the sun. In this case, you keep fasting. You keep fasting, even if the people in your home country, even if it's Maghrib there. But because you left your home country and it still wasn't Maghrib, and the plane took off, and you can still, and it's still, the sun has not set. It's been 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Yes, and the sun is not setting. And it happened to me once when I traveled from Saudi to England. It was one very long fast. Very long fast, because I had to wait to get to England for the sun to set, although several hours before, or few hours before, sorry, it had happened in Saudi. Yeah, so the fast became very long. The point is, if you keep you cannot break your fast until the sun sets. That's the point. Okay, so once the plane has took off and it's still and still people are fasting, you cannot break your fast until the sun sets wherever you are, in whichever location you are. You keep fasting, even if people have broken the fast in your home country. Okay, and the opposite is also true. That if before you board the plane, or once you board the plane, before the plane takes off, let's say, for example, before the plane takes off, Maghrib has come in and you have opened your fast, you have broken your fast, yes? Then the plane takes off and you see, and you're going past and you see the sun again. It hasn't set. Yes, no problem. You continue to not fasting and your fasting is correct. You continue not fasting and your fasting is correct because, alas, you have already broken your fast in your home country before the plane took off. It was Maghrib. Now, no consideration is to be given to you seeing the sun again not having set whilst you are traveling. So these were some of the benefits which we take from this hadith. I want to start the next hadith, but it's already been almost an hour, so we're going to have to leave that till tomorrow, inshallah. And we will continue in Ramadan. So that will be announced later. So after tomorrow, we will do our lesson normal time tomorrow, inshallah, 9:30 p.m. Saudi time, which is 6:30 p.m. UK time. We will do our lesson tomorrow, bi'idhnillah. And from next week, we will do it once a week in Ramadan, 4 Saturdays, obviously. We will do it just on a Saturday, but we will do it, obviously we'll try to choose a time which is suitable for everyone in the afternoon sometime. And that will be announced, inshallah, on through the Markaz Telegram and Twitter and other social media accounts, bi'idhnillah. So we will leave that tomorrow, and until tomorrow, inshallah, we will try to take another, hopefully 2 or 3 hadith, because one of them is weak anyway, so we're not going to discuss it. So hopefully we can cover 2 or 3 hadiths tomorrow, bi'idhnillah. And then once we cover the 2-3 hadiths tomorrow, we will have covered many issues concerning the beginning of Ramadan, or those things that we do before Ramadan. And then from next Saturday, inshallah, we will continue. Bi'idhnillah. Barakallahu feekum. Okay, there seems to be a question here. So we have about 5 minutes to take questions. If these questions are going to be answered in the next 1 or 2 lessons, then there's no much benefit in answering them. We can wait. I joined late in case this has been covered. I'm not sure if you touched on the whole world fast together based on a single moon basis. Yes, I have. Given no location was specified in when you see the moon, there's only one moon worldwide. What is the fiqh evidence for any for relying on citing the moon based on location, irrespective of where else in the world moon sight is opposed to worldwide consensus from reliable believing men? And time difference around the world cannot exceed 12 hours a day. No. Okay, so brother Abu Ahmad, and I don't really want to repeat all that again. So what you can do is, we have spoken about this in some detail. So what I advise you to do is to listen to this lesson from the beginning, inshallah. Okay. Will we have Kitab al-Tawheed class in Ramadan? No. In Ramadan, my Kitab al-Tawheed and the Ajurumiyya class will stop, and we will just focus on the classes on Ramadan, on the book of fasting. And so inshallah, this Sunday should be our last class in Kitab al-Tawheed, and then we will pause for Ramadan. How do we know which is the stronger opinion in ijtihadi issues? And that's a very good question, but it's a very lengthy answer. I mean, you have to see which opinion, if you have the ability. If you have the ability, if you have the tools, you have the knowledge, you know the lugha, Arabiya, you know fiqh, usul al-fiqh, you can compare between proofs and evidences and the statements of the Salaf and the statements of the scholars. Then you can do that and look which one is stronger according to the proofs in the Quran and the Sunnah, and also according to the qawaid, the usul of the deen, the principles of the religion. Now, there are some principles in the religion, there are some qawaid and usul in the religion. So we look at what the scholars and the ulama, they say in the light of the proofs of the Quran and the Sunnah, and what the Sahaba were upon. And also in light of the usul and the qawaid ad-deen. And if you don't have the ability to do that, then go with the statement or the position of the scholars you feel more comfortable with, your heart most inclined towards. Allahu a'lam. Naam. Fas'alu ahla dhikri in kuntum la ta'lamun. And that's what is obligatory upon you. Ask the people of dhikr. Alhamdulillah, we suffice with that, and Allah's made everything easy. So manashik is to take sabab. Allah is not, okay, this is in Tawheed, okay. Not made a sabab previous lessons. How is it different from bid'ah? How is it different from bid'ah? Because we mentioned that making something a sabab, this is from the rububiyyah of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah is the Hakim, He is the Rabb. Allah is the one who makes halal wa haram. Allah Azza wa Jal is the one that makes something a sabab and doesn't make something another thing a sabab. This is something for Allah Azza wa Jal and not for Bashar. Nah? So, as Sheikh Muhammad ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen, he mentioned Qawl al-Mufid from Rahimahullah, explanation of Kitab al-Tawheed, he mentioned it from this angle. Nah? I hope that is clear. So isn't all bid'ah taking a sabab? Allah has not made a sabab. Isn't all bid'ah taking a sabab? Allah has not made a sabab. I'm trying to think of your question. Take a sabab. Allah has not made a sabab. يعني Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاء شَرَعُوا لَهُم مِّنَ الدِّينِ مَا لَمْ يَأْذَنْ بِهِ اللَّهُ. This is an ayah which the scholars use to refute the people of bid'ah. Do they have partners who have legislated for them that which Allah has not given permission for? No? So bid'ah, يعني, from one angle, yes. يعني, people are legislating in the deen of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. They have set themselves up as, although this is not their intention. This is not their intention. But they are, what they are doing really is introducing new things into the religion. Nah, they are introducing new things in religion which Allah has not given any authority for. And obviously, all bid'ah is dalalah and it is haram. But can we say that is all bid'ah taking a sabab that Allah has not made a sabab? Allahu a'lam, I've never heard any scholar say that, nor have I read it. No? So we stick to what the ulama have mentioned in their explanations, and we suffice with that. But I can understand where you are coming from, and that is all I can say at the moment. Allah knows best. Tamam? طيب. So we see you tomorrow, inshallah, bi-idhnillahi jalla wa ala, at the same time. Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam, wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.